the first year MBBS students, when they go to medical school, one of the toughest course they have is anatomy. Just to remember the parts of the body itself is so difficult. Remember all the parts of the body. Right? And in fact, I don't know if any one of you have been to this Iyengar yoga class, because when I used to live in the US, I tried one of these Iyengar yoga class. And they tell you, oh, you know, the certain parts of the body that they ask you to move this way and move that way. And I said, like, what part is it? I don't even know what you're talking about, let alone to move it, but I don't even know what you're referring to. Right? So therefore, it's a complex mechanism, right? So therefore, now there are two things that you have to remember. It's a complex mechanism, but it is 5 elements, it is not I. But the second most important thing is, and you know, the minute you make that mistake and you think that the body is I, you take on what? All the limitations of the body as limitations of on yourself, and then you are stuck. Okay? So the very thing which is a gift becomes what? A source of all kinds of complexes. Right? So this is me, as I told you, so much of our self-esteem is dependent upon our what? Physical features. How you look, how tall you are, what's the color of your skin, you know, all, I mean, and not only that, but you know, your certain feelings that you have of inadequacy, okay, of lack, of feeling, you know, a certain amount of inferiority complex, jealousy. It's all based on what? So much of it is based on your identification with the physical body. And not only that, what? This ultimate fear of mortality. So that means it's not a small mistake. Please understand, when you correct this mistake, it's not just, yeah, I'm not the body. It becomes all mechanical. If you really understood and assimilated, you can't have, on one hand, you can say, oh, Vedanta says that I'm not the body, right? And you said, I have understood. And at the same time, what? Have jealousy towards somebody else who has, according to you, what? Better figure or whatever. Better figure. Right? So that means this knowledge that you have is what? No, it's, you think you understand, but have you assimilated? Exactly. Right? So that means it takes a long time for Vedanta to seep into your
DNA.
Absolutely. To where your whole life, what, and your whole understanding and your whole way you look at the world and you look at yourself, it gets what? Gets totally what? It's assimilated knowledge. So this is why people ask, oh, you've studied Vedanta but you haven't changed. That happens because we understand things, but there are levels of understanding. And that level of understanding is, you know, see, for example, I tell you E is equal to mc square. What does E is equal to mc square? What does it mean? Energy is equal to mass, right? So therefore, this is what Einstein's equation, right? That every form is nothing but energy, and they are interchangeable. Mass is equal to energy. Now, when I talk about it, and when a physicist who has studied 20 years of physics talks about it, it seems as though we are saying the same thing. But what is the depth of that physicist understanding and what is the depth of my understanding? You can't compare. You can't compare, right? Because if somebody asks me just one equation, I will be lost. But the person, you question 20,000 things and he'll be able, if the person has understood it accurately, what will happen? The person, what, will be able to examine all the different contentions that you have. He'll be able to answer, and he operates from a certain clarity. Same thing. People say, oh, Vedanta, I've understood. It's all, I'm not the body, I'm not the body. And when you say, it's like a parrot repeating, I'm not the body, whereas all the other complexes remain intact. So that means there is not enough integration and clarity of thought. That means one part of the brain understands, the other part of the brain is what?
Vague.
Is just kind of continuing from the past, orientations and behaviors. It's not all. The implications of what I have studied is not well integrated into my being. And this is why people say, oh, Vedanta, whether you study Bhagavad Gita or you study Upanishads, it's all saying basically the same thing. They say, I've studied this. You've studied this, but it takes lifetimes to totally understand all the implications of what we are talking about, where if anybody is to stand in front of you, of whether it's a physicist or a neuroscientist, and engage in a dialogue, and if they are open, they will see that what you know is something which is unshakable. That is what we call well assimilated knowledge. Okay, so therefore, please don't make it into some kind of a superficial learning. Vedanta is not superficial. You need to have a certain depth, and for that it takes time. Okay, so that is one problem. Now the other problem is that not well assimilated knowledge is one problem. The second problem is even a bigger problem, and that is, I am not the body, so therefore what? I just have to be detached to the body. This detachment is one of the biggest problems. Where is the question of detachment? You are given this body, it is meant for you to use it. Just because you are not the body doesn't mean that you have to be detached from it. It's a source. It's a resource which is given to you. You have to take care of it, and you have to even beautify it. Why not? In Kathopanishad, there is a beautiful analogy. The analogy is that there is a horse, there's the owner of chariot who has to reach the destination. Okay, and for reaching that destination, the owner of the chariot needs what? There is a chariot, the physical chariot, then there are horses. Let's say there are 5 horses. Then there is who? There are reins. Then there is what? The charioteer, right? And then there is the owner of the chariot. The owner of the chariot has to reach the destination. Okay? Now, what is the destination? So that means this whole scenario is equated to human beings coming on this earth. You land up one day on this earth and you're given a chariot. What is a chariot? Your physical body. Right? And what are these 5 horses? Your 5 sense organs. Your 5 senses are your horses. Right? What is the rein? Your mind. Your mind is the rein because the senses, all the 5 senses through the reins get centralized into what? One space. So everything that your sense organs report, it gets centralized and it is reported where? In your mind. This is where all the processing happens. Right? And from this is where all the decisions are taken. So what is that decision? The charioteer, using the reins, does what? Guides to reach the final destination. So what is the charioteer? In this case, your buddhi, your intellect. Okay? And based on that, what? The chariot owner reaches the final destination. Now, imagine that means that the body is given is a resource. What is the end that a human being has to reach? According to Vedanta, what is the end? Moksha is the end. Human life is meant for moksha. What is moksha? Moksha is freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from all that you don't want. What do you don't want? Limitation, mortality. You don't want what? That feeling of smallness, feeling of lack, freedom from sadness, freedom from jealousy. All these, freedom is something from everything that you don't want. Okay, so that is the human goal. Human being, this is what that pursuit of moksha is the end, according to Vedanta Shastra and Bhagavad Gita. Okay, for that freedom, you are given what? That is the destination. You are given the chariot. The body is something which is needed. Without body, there is no inquiry. Without body, there is no what? You can't do anything. So body is something which is an instrument, just because the chariot, now imagine, the chariot owner starts thinking, I am the chariot. What is the problem?
Wrong identification.
Completely wrong identification, right? The chariot owner is basically different from the chariot. If the chariot owner starts thinking, I am as good as the chariot, what will happen? Whole life will go in what? Making the chariot beautiful. And what is really the purpose of chariot? To just make it beautiful or take you to the destination?
To reach a destination.
To reach a destination. So therefore, the whole use is what? It's all, and whole life is just in decoration. This is what we do. This body, which is an instrument, we take it as I, and whole life becomes what?
Beautification.
Beautification. The whole human end becomes beautification. Now, if the chariot owner is told that you are not the chariot, but you are the owner, which is distinct from the chariot, does it mean that the person doesn't have to take care of the chariot? No. Because the person needs the chariot. Does it mean that he doesn't clean the chariot? Does it mean that when the wheels are not working well, you just be indifferent to it? No. You need to take care of the chariot because it is a resource which is given to you. You need to have a proper, because you are not that doesn't mean that you have to be indifferent to it. That is another mistake people make when they don't make it so clear when they teach Vedanta. Becomes like a detached. Does the chariot owner have to be told you have to be detached with the chariot? No. This is a wrong message. The minute you start wanting to detach from the chariot, what will happen? You cease to have proper relationship with it. Neither you have to be detached nor you have to be attached, or you just need to know the reality. All Vedanta teaching is all just realities. The teacher doesn't tell you, you should do this, you should not do this. That person hasn't understood Vedanta. Vedanta is just throwing light on what is. And which always be. Either you understand it accurately or you don't understand it accurately. So the attempt of the teacher is what? To make you see what is. The very word Guru comes from that. Gukaraha andhakaraha vai rukaraha nivartakaha andhakara nirodhitvat guru iti abhidhiyate. Beautiful. Who is a guru? Rukara, Gukara stands for andhakara. Andhakara means darkness. Darkness of ignorance. Because of that ignorance or some confusion, you don't see what is. What does the teacher do? Exactly. Rukaraha nivartakaha. The teacher's job is not to give you an advice, is to do what? Lift that veil of ignorance so that you can see what is clearly. That is job of a teacher. You are alive to what is. And what is doesn't depend upon, as Roxy said, whether you understand it or not. It is. Okay? So therefore, this chariot, attachment, detachment, all this Vedanta, if you have learned, take it out from your mind. Because it just puts you on some kind of a advice where actually it's a fact. Mode of an advice. Okay? This is reality. Chariot is not you, but chariot is useful for you to reach the destination. Okay? Now the 5 senses are what? 5 horses. Are those senses I, the nature of I?
No.
No. Why?
Again, it keeps changing and
Absolutely. Each of the 5 senses that you have, whether it's your eyes or it's your ears or it's what? Your sense of taste, sense of smell, it's something that you identify with. Your eye gets connected to the capacity of the senses. Right? Nobody actually says I'm as good as my ears, the capacity of my ears to hear, but we make statements is what? I'm becoming deaf or I'm becoming blind. What does it mean? Your eye gets loaded with what? The capacity of your senses. Right? So now all of you, I don't know how many of you have reached early 40s, but by the time, in Gujarati we call Betara. Betara means by the time you're 42, what? Everybody starts. One way to know the age of somebody is whether they're wearing glasses or not while they read. Right? That is something means that you're born with a certain sight, but it is not a constant thing. What happens over a period of time? It is changing. Right? In fact, the eyes of the child is not programmed totally to give forms. You know how as an adult you see all distinguish. Their whole vision is slightly blurred. As the eyes develop, they begin to distinguish forms accurately. Then for a while they do it well, and then what? Your eyesight sometimes begins to deteriorate, then your reading abilities begin to go down. So therefore, then there is a cataract that can happen. So that means your eyes undergo, it's an instrument, it undergoes change. Okay? So now, again, the chariot owner, you, are you the senses, or you have the what? Ability to use your senses to interact with the world. Who are you? Are you the senses, or you are endowed with those senses to be able to interact with the world? That is the accurate picture. Okay? So that means these senses are not I, but because they are not I, also doesn't mean that they are useless. You need your senses. Imagine if you did not have, imagine in this world you have physical body but you have no senses. You will be not able to interact with the world. The whole window that you have in this world to interact is through the senses. Without those senses, they are the tool. Okay? There is a form and you have what? Eyes. There is smell and you have nose. There is sound and you have ears. There is food or whatever and you have taste. And there is what? Something like cold, heat, everything is what? Touch. All the pleasures that we seek, you go to spa and spend hours. What pleasure? Touch. Right? So these 5 senses is something which is your whole life. Now imagine, if you take the chariot owner takes oneself to be the horses, and whole day just starts what? Feeding to those senses. What will happen? what will happen? Because the senses means you have to see forms. How many different forms you can expose yourself to? Infinite. There is no end. You get tired of one form, then what? Another type of form. So switch to another, switch to another, switch to another. How many? Infinite possibilities. You'll be busy for rest of your life. And that's only one form, which is what? One sense organ, which is your eyes. Your ears. Music. You can spend your whole lifetime listening to music. And you can get more and, and it is not that it's a waste of time. You can get more and more and more refined in your taste. Right? First you start liking all these like beats, and then you begin to study ragas, differentiate. Then within ragas, how they are rendered in South India, how they are rendered in Hindustani, Karnataka. Then each one, how each artist renders it differently. I mean, it's no end. It's sophisticated. Please don't think that it is all just useless. But it is all just feeding senses and total identification with the senses. Okay? So that means something which is useful. Can you now say the senses are not you, so therefore you should not pay attention to those sense organs? No. Neither we are telling you not to be attached, nor we are telling you to be what? Detached. The reality is, it's a reality confusion. Senses, which is so essential for you to interact with the world, is taken to be I, is a problem. The minute you recognize that it is something which is necessary, it's an extremely important instrument without which my interaction with the world is impossible, I need to look after it, but it is not I, then what? I have a proper relationship with it. Okay? Anything that happens there, you need to fix it. Okay? Now, the third major identification last time we saw is with the mind. Okay? So that is like what? The charioteer. Now there is a confusion between the charioteer and what? The chariot owner. Okay? Now, what is the mind? We saw, if you ask what is the mind, it is actually nothing but thoughts. Okay? Now, every thought that you have had, how long does it last? It's seconds. Right? Now, what is your relationship with the thought? If you were the thought, before the thought came, you will not exist. And once the thought comes, you are there. When the thought goes, if you are as good as the thought, what will happen? You will also disappear. Right? So that means that there is a basic mistake that we make between what? The thoughts and what? I, which is the observer of the thoughts. Thoughts come and go. There was a study in one of, all these people do a lot of studies, and they said in one day, imagine how many different thoughts you have. How many different thoughts you have in a day? Anybody can guess?
Any amount can be
On an average.
16,000.
60,000 thoughts on an average. Human mind has 60,000 different thoughts in a day. If you were as good as the thought, when one thought comes, you will come into life and then existence, and when the thought goes, you will cease to exist. Then when the next thought comes, again you will come into existence, and then you will cease to exist. Is that how it is? No. What is the relationship between the thought and I? When the thought comes, Am I present before the thought comes or not? Yes. I am there, and because I am there, I am able to recognize the coming of that thought. I am thinking of a tree. The tree thought was not there 1 minute ago. Now the tree thought has come. I am very much there. Who knew what? The absence of tree thought prior to that thought occurred. When that thought came, am I there or not? Am I there? Yes. Who's observing the presence of that thought? When that thought goes, am I there or not?
Yes.
I'm very much there. I'm there, and I understand now the tree thought has gone, and now I'm thinking of a cow thought. Okay, so that means you are that invariable presence who comes to know what all these different thoughts passing by. Now, what is the nature of mistake that we make? We identify ourselves with what we, in our mind, we are as good as our thoughts. So that means if the thought is that of happiness, what happens? I say, I am happy. If thought is that of sadness, what do I say? I am sad. If the thought is that of jealousy, I say what? I am jealous. So that means my I is loaded with what? All different thoughts that I think about, and I suffer from what? The limitations of that thought life, which is what? I'm actually an observer, and the observer is always independent of the thoughts. So what Vedanta is pointing out is you are that chit. Chit is awareness, because of which you come to know your different what? Thoughts, and that chit is independent of any thoughts. Okay? Now, the thoughts are not just random. Thoughts are so well organized that, in fact, this whole personal identity that we have, okay, they are not just random thoughts and then, whatever. The thoughts themselves are, as Roxy was saying last time, that we have our self-opinion is based on the quality of thoughts that we have, but the thoughts that we have also are multifaceted. Okay, so one particular type of thought is what we call manas. Manas is a thought with reference to the emotions. Okay, so that means emotion is, you see, as I gave you the example last time, that let's say you're jogging on Marine Drive and you see this kids who are, living under that bridge, flyover, right? And you see that the parents are sleeping and the kids are running around. Now this is something which what your eyes, the forms, is something, the frame is reported to your brain, and your brain feels what? You feel like crying. If you have a proper undamaged mind, where you've somehow what? Stopped thinking about anything, okay, the natural reaction is going to be what? Some kind of an empathy for that child. That's human heart, right? So that means there is an event, and that event does what? Triggers an emotion in you. Okay, so this particular thought is what you have given some meaning to what you see, and then because of that meaning that you have given, there is a corresponding emotion. This is what we call emoting mind, right? This is something that you are programmed. Please understand. Anybody who wants to say Vedanta is just, you are not the mind, therefore you have to eliminate your emotions, they don't know what they are talking about. Mind is programmed. Imagine if you lose your capacity to have that emotion of empathy, you would become like a stone. You will become like a robot. We are not trying to make you into a robot when you study Vedanta. That emotion which triggers has a certain reality, and it is something which is, it's good. Please don't, that sadness, when you label it into a negative emotion, you are creating a huge confusion, because when you don't have that, when you desensitize yourself and you don't feel anything for that child, you are interfering with human program. You are meant to feel what that empathy works on, what it evokes certain kind of discomfort in you. If you want to become indifferent to it, what are you doing? You are making yourself into a robot. Emotions have their own place. Imagine you're walking at night, and there's this huge guy coming to you. You will have what?
Fear.
Fear. Is this fear negative? Is it negative? No.
It's a sense of protection.
Exactly. It will make you what? Alert. You will take what? Some kind of a precaution, and you will do what needs to be done to protect yourself. Categorizing emotions as what? Negative is a huge problem. Human mind is given what? Capacity to emote. And there are ranges of emotion which a human being is programmed to have. And emotions are what? Necessary, and they are healthy. In fact, what is interesting is any art form in India. You look at, if any one of you have studied the classical dance performances, Bharatnatyam. In that Bharatnatyam, there are certain pieces where it just shows a range of emotions. And the dancer depicts what? Different episodes, different emotions. And they take what? Certain stories from Mahabharata, Ramayana to show how different events trigger different emotions. And that is something which is universal. You go to somebody's wedding party, what is the general thing? That of celebration, happiness. Or somebody has an accident, how will you go? Concerned. So that means there is this range of emotion which adds to sanity. That there is a corresponding emotion which is appropriate for that given occasion. So emotions themselves are not a problem. Don't make them into a problem. The problem is the very your relationship with the emotion.
How much weightage you give it?
Not even weightage. What is your relationship with the emotion? The emotion is nothing but a thought, and who are you? You are the observer. What has happened is the emotion that you are observing, you have attributed the emotion as the nature of I. That is the problem. So that means there is a cognitive confusion that we all have. Emotion is something which is what? In form of a thought, and that thought is a passing thought. That's why every thought that you have, every emotion up to now, how many emotions you have felt? Thousands and thousands and thousands of those emotions. Do any of these emotions right now stick to you? No. What does it mean? You are the observer of emotions, but unfortunately you have taken yourself to be what? You define yourself as the emotion itself. That is the nature of the problem. Emotions are not a problem. The confusion is the problem. Okay? And independent of this emotion is something that you need to know. Now this manas is, you see this child, parents are sleeping, the child is under the overhead bridge, and it's